right, so welcome to Liquid Lunch here. It's me, Hugh, and Sandra unfortunately couldn't be here today, but we're here to speak with Almine, and it's great to have you back, Almine. We had you here, I guess it was in the spring, and you're back in Toronto this weekend to give a lecture and to teach people some fascinating material. And I guess the topic really, and maybe we can start with the topic of what you're going to be talking about, and that is reclaiming the cosmic underworld. So let's talk about what that means first of all, because that sounds like it could be a big topic.
Well, it really is a massive topic, but first of all, you know, the Hopis say it isn't spiritual if it doesn't grow corn.
Right,
And so,
I like that.
So how does it grow corn? What we are really talking about is reclaiming the subconscious.
Okay.
In the cosmos and on the planet, the subconscious manifests as an underworld.
Mm-hmm.
In our homes, it manifests as one of those drawers that's a catch-all drawer, where you put the things that you mean to use in another 6 months and never do and don't have a place for, and eventually it's a very messy drawer.
Mm-hmm.
So many light workers really do their self-work. They try and eliminate things that have happened in the past, sexual abuse of in their childhood and so on. But it seems to just always come back when there is a specific trigger. And why that is the catch-all drawer, the subconscious. So getting rid of that is very, very important.
You know, this seems like the fundamental problem. I mean, there are so many different modalities. There's so much self-help. You know, there's a million self-help books, a million different approaches to improving your life. But it seems to me, at least in my case, not that I need any change, but you know, we try things, but so often people complain, well, it's just nothing happens. I haven't changed. I'm still the same. No matter what I try, it doesn't work. And it kind of reminds, is that what you're talking about? That
Yes.
This stuff that is the buried things that, you know, cause us to self-sabotage despite our best efforts to
Correct.
not do that. It's just that we got the subconscious stuff that we don't know how to deal with. Is that what it is?
That is a very large part of it. Also, getting rid of something that you feel is a method of suppressing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be altered through perception and various other methods. There's different methods of dealing with these things, but at the end of the day, if something lingers,
Mm-hmm.
you can be quite sure it's been pushed down into that subconscious mind.
Okay, so it sounds like almost that for people that are watching now, and for people that might be considering coming to the lecture, you've got a free lecture tonight, although there's a $20 recommended donation, which is totally understandable. But the retreat that's happening this weekend as well, for people maybe that have tried a lot of different things, but they're still not happy with the way their life is working, that maybe this would be an excellent thing to do to help them deal with those underlying issues that they're just not getting to.
It certainly would. And actually, our retreats involve multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
They're also, I'm going to actually ask the facilitators, and I haven't discussed this with them yet, but we have recently discovered the alchemical oils that are prepared in a very, very special way, which is an ancient way that has been handed down.
Mm-hmm.
The fragrance alchemy can be used on meridian points for the 12 main meridians. And I was actually going to ask them if they could do it on the people in the class as well. The other thing that people get when they come to our retreats is they really get their money back in the form of that they get Belvaspata initiations.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, I don't know if it's being presented because this is a weekend one versus a week-long one, which we usually have in Toronto, but they get the initiation to become a Belvaspata practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And it involves preparation and so on as well. So, but in the Belvaspatar modalities, there is a specific modality for the trauma of this life. There is another specific part of the modality that you can do on yourself and on others that is for former lives. And then there is one that goes even deeper, because the cosmos itself goes through life and death cycles. And when we do past life work, it's only during this specific cycle, and it's currently in a life cycle.
The whole cosmos is in a
Yes.
life cycle?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in its alive state versus in its death state. So there is also actually part that is given that people use to clear memories that have come from things that occurred in the state of its death. And the equivalent in human lives would be dreaming and awakening. Like things happen in the dream state, and when you wake up, you have symbols from your dream that you work with to actually process and get the insights from what it is you need to get. But if you don't, you're getting karma two places. In your physical awake world and also in the dream world, because the dream world is the exact same place that people go when they die. That's why you can see loved ones that have passed in your dream.
Wow.
So there's karma accrued both places.
Okay.
The cosmos has a dream and an awake state as well.
Boy, that opens up a lot of territory. I mean, we could probably be talking about all this stuff all day long, but let me just ask you, my first question from that is you talk about the cosmos goes through periods of aliveness and deadness, I guess we could call it.
Yes.
How long do these periods last? Like, for example, have we, in our lifetimes here, have we lived in both an alive cosmos state and a dead cosmos state?
For sure we have. How long is very difficult to say, because the cosmos is on a different time than we are. And we can only judge it by Earth time. The cosmos has 300 days in its orbit. It has 300 positions. And the 300 days makes a cosmic year. How long it is in Earth years is, billions of years. And then it has multiple of those, and then it may transition into its death cycles.
Okay. So now we were talking a little bit before we actually came on the air, and we were getting into all kinds of great topics. But one of the things that seemed to come out or jumped out at me, and you can correct me if I misinterpreted it, but you mentioned that we are very powerful beings, human beings, and because we were talking about angelic spirits, channeled spirits, and what you were saying was that we really, human beings, are very powerful, and that we really are and should respect ourselves as the masters of our own destiny. Is that accurate?
Yes. The destiny of what happens on Earth, which means humankind, all the other creatures, the Earth herself, is in our hands. It's firmly our responsibility on our shoulders. And when we ask for insights from beings from other realms, to take it as the pure gospel truth and they're going to save us is incorrect. Sometimes channels say, oh, a benign group of aliens stepped in, and what they did is they averted the asteroid that passed by the Earth last February, and they averted the meteor from Moscow to the countryside so that there wasn't a huge loss of life. I think only one person died from injuries from shattered glass. But they cannot help us if it isn't that on Earth the major light bearers have realized that change comes gracefully if you cooperate with life, and it will come catastrophically if you refuse to yield to change in a non-fluid way. If enough of us made that realization as the major light bearers of the Earth, somebody could step in and help, but ultimately it is amongst humanity, the great lights on Earth, that facilitate that. if humanity does not change, no amount of external assistance can force us to be saved. It is something that is done in the individual.
Okay, so now that's reminding me, we also got into a discussion before we came on the show about working on ourselves as individuals, the kind of improvement that a person can do on their own for their own individual self and awareness versus the world out there.
Yes.
And this is something that that I've been dealing with or trying to understand myself for a long time, because people say, and you said before we came on, you know, if you want to make a change in the world, you need to make a change in yourself, right? And in a
Yes.
way, of course, that's the only thing we might have some control over is how to change on our own individual level. But I don't understand how doing that, and maybe this is just my super logical mind at work, but how working on ourselves as an individual can affect the world out there.
Certainly. Each person has their own reality. And if you take a loaf of bread that's sliced and you turn it on its end, you can say that your reality is a specific slice of the bread. Let's say that you're looking at the government. Each person sees a different slice of reality of that government. If one of the slices can change dramatically, it ripples throughout the others. So in other words, if you know yourself to be all things that you can possibly experience, and that everything that you can see is yourself, then what happens is that you have an influence throughout the whole slice that is your reality. And by changing that, it ripples through the rest of the bread. This has become particularly pertinent since December of 2012. Mayan calendar said that, you know, it was the end of time. It is. It was the end of a specific way time flowed through space. Time flew in a linear manner around and around a circle, hence cyclical life cycles. It changed, and it started there, and it really culminated in February of 2013. That time is now exponential time. It's not linear time. So it's a little bit like dropping a pebble into the pond, and it ripples out in rings. Somebody else drops a pebble in a pond, and your rings intercept theirs. Every act is a pebble. And if you know the influence that this goes throughout the pond that has no shores, the endlessness of life, every action becomes so imbued with power, and also affects the lives of every other cyclical, centrifugal force that goes out from each person's actions. It affects all life. The ripples from one pebble go throughout the whole pond, and other people's actions, that it will intersect it. Where it intersects it is in fact the place where formlessness comes into form, where potential becomes actualized. It creates new potential.
Okay, so that reminds me of something else you mentioned before we came on, is where, and because we talk about creation, right? We talk about intention, and we talking about, you mentioned faith, and in reference to how it affects the physical worlds, which begins with particles, you know, if we want to look at it from a quantum physics point of view. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I am happy to. The quality of your slice of bread is determined by your chosen perspective.
Now, does that mean our life, the quality of our life as a slice of bread in
The
your
slice
metaphor?
of bread being not just your life, but your reality, everything that you can possibly experience
And perceive. Okay.
is determined by your perspective.
Okay.
Faith is a very specific, chosen perspective. It is a perspective that holds the larger vision And that faith, if faith is interpreted properly, because faith is not that I can exert my individual desires onto my environment, and that somehow the cosmos or the infinite is going to cooperate with my will.
In other words, visualize a Cadillac and I'll get a Cadillac.
Exactly.
Right?
There, you got it. Yes. So that's not really what faith means. Faith means the trust in the benevolence of life.
Yeah.
That the all innocence is present in every experience. And so it is when you look from the large perspective that you can see that there's an exquisite piece of art developing. But from a small perspective, it looks chaotic. And so faith is the perspective that trusts the benevolence of life and surrenders to those things that seem to be part of the journey.
Okay. So that's great. Now, sometimes I'm amazed that here we are in the year 2013 and we're still here, right? We're still here despite having the atomic bomb hanging over our heads since 1945, the whole planet. And I mean, we just had very recently a bit of a scare in terms of the whole situation in Syria that has now seems to be diffused, at least for the time being, and hopefully will remain that way. But, you know, a lot of people, you know, people who are into conspiracy theories and that sort of thing are saying, oh no, the US somebody wants to have a third world war erupt, somebody wants to have a depopulation agenda happen on the planet. And I wonder if you can just comment on that, and I mean, not whether or not that's going to happen, but is it about our approach to these issues, or what? I'm not even sure what I'm asking here, but it's a big question.
Well, the big question is usually when a crisis arises, and this can be termed a crisis. So a crisis arises when it's time to go from one level of expression to the next. View it as a dance. If you've held a specific movement in the dance too long, it is time for another movement.
Yeah.
When that's the case, crises like these prompt the change. And they don't have to come to full-blown fruition. They are there to say, do something.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like a rock in the river, and what purpose does it serve? Well, it serves, if it wasn't there yesterday and it's there today, a big rock fell in the river, then what it does is it diverts the river into a new direction. These are rocks in the river to divert us into new directions. If you take a look at, and to tie some of the things we've said together, I have for some years said that there is a biological warfare facility, weapons facility in Syria. I've said that for years. It's actually very large. And it's underground, and it was dug, this whole underground facility, which consists of a satellite and tunnel and satellite and tunnel. The whole thing was dug with equipment obtained from the Americans that digs underneath the ground. So they have an underground facility with chemical warfare in. And it's known to most of the Arab countries and also to some Asian countries. So is that of concern? Should something be done? Will they even find it? It's deep enough that it will not be detected by satellites, which can see quite a far ways into the ground. But this one is beyond that deliberately. So they possibly may not be able to find it or see it. You know, I don't know. But really, that's not the issue. The issue is that there is a possibility that something that is toxic to higher life, which is a life of peacefulness amongst nations and health of people, that something toxic could potentially leak in.
Even as an accident.
Well, it can leak in unless something is done.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we can call it an accident, but let's just tie everything we've said together. Where's it going to come from? In us, it is time for the subconscious to be put to its true purpose. For eons in the evolution of humanity, the subconscious has been diverted from its true destiny.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So it is filled with things that are put in from the outside.
The junk drawer.
Yes,
right?
the junk drawer. So again, you know, we spoke about how humanity can be diverted from their destiny of taking control of their own lives by letting things from the outside seep in, some benign, some meant to delude. We have spoken about how this weekend is about clearing the subconscious. We have spoken about the change in time. Why it's imminent that our subconscious deep fears and almost infantile loneliness and fear of abandonment and please hold me kind of feeling is coming up for us, is that time used to go in a rut, like a gramophone record, round and round and round. Those ruts can be called cosmic ley lines. On Earth, there are ley lines. In humanity, in our body, there are the 12 main meridians with the 8 extraordinary meridians for a total of 20 meridians. When time started flowing differently from a centrifugal force outward, it started to flush up some of the eons old traumas held in these polluted rivers we know as ley lines.
In our bodies.
In our bodies, on Earth, and in the cosmos.
Okay.
So it's starting to flush out things that have been kept. And that is the accident that you're talking about, but really not an accident. It's just time for us to now develop something completely new and magical and exquisite from our subconscious.
As individuals, or is this going to apply on a macro level?
Individuals, which will apply to the macro level because you cannot change one slice without changing the whole bread. How does this go to Syria? The entire reality that says suppress the leakage of this to the rest of the world, which is what the war is stated to be about, and actually it is, it will rewrite itself completely into a whole different reality. The tunnels will collapse. One day we'll wake up, the tunnels are just not there. The facility is gone. Reality is fluid. I know because I watch my students and in my own case myself change our bodies. And we have on our interdimensionalphotos.com a photo of me sitting in my chair and it's shot interdimensionally, but I'm the size of a 6-year-old. And we have another one with a 60-year-old woman standing in front of me and she's up to my waist. You know, and that's because the body is fluid, and if you don't focus on, if you travel interdimensionally and you don't focus on getting it the exact right size, when you come back you can make glitches like that. But it demonstrates that physical form can change in a heartbeat. And so that reality will change when we prevent the threat of leakage from the subconscious back into all these levels that we have worked so hard to evolve into higher consciousness.
So what is the real work that we need to do then? Is it really that we have to dig into our subconscious and clear out that junk drawer? Is that what we have to do?
No, it isn't. It really isn't.
Okay.
Because to clear something undesirable out is called transformation. To clear something undesirable out is transformation. To take something undesirable and mutate it to something higher is called transmutation.
Okay.
To totally change the form of something is transfiguration.
Okay.
We are looking at something different. We're looking at transcending that reality altogether by changing our perspective. I don't know what I'm going to be teaching this weekend because every retreat is brand new information for me.
Right.
And it comes just from a place of silent not knowingness.
Yeah.
So I am very much looking forward to that. What we did have recently is that we have, and it's on the website fragrancealchemy.com, but we have alchemical oils that are produced for us in Egypt according to the ancient recipes that they say are on some of the pyramid walls. And we have found that when we use it on the 12 meridians, that it does tremendous things for suicidal tendencies, self-destructiveness, fear, angst, all these various things that are held in the various meridians. There's a little kit that comes with the different oils in it and the directions of this is where you put it. That for us has helped a lot. We have miracle stories about that, but there is much more to be done because it's not a matter of getting rid, it's a matter of completely creating a new reality of what the subconscious purpose is. Let's take the earth.
Okay.
Okay, on earth, it is the underworld. It's the place where demons embody chaos.
What is, sorry, the earth itself?
The earth's underworld.
You mean underground? Under the physical ground?
No, it is a frequency that is lower, like you would play an octave on the piano.
Yeah.
The building blocks of life, the subquantum particles,
Right.
they have a little frequency component.
Yeah.
If you change the frequency component down one octave, you're in the underworld.
Okay.
And so it's a frequency level. It's not a space.
Okay.
The underworld of the earth holds the demons. Throughout the years, I have found that on occasion, our fairies and our elves, and sometimes our angels, are captured and taken into the underworld so that their energy can be drained. And I've often wondered why it is so prevalent that it is the little fairies and the little elves. Because the underworld is really their magical world. And they think they are going home. But home has been taken over by bandits and robbers. So my point is that the underworld in some way has to be restored for the magical kingdoms as their home. Their ability to work with our plants to help regrowth of certain species that are being eliminated in the Amazon, in areas that are not eliminated and so on. All of this can be enhanced if they have their true home. They are displaced.
So what do we do about that, or is it our place to do something about that?
That is something that this weekend I will receive the information from.
Wow.
And I pass it on as rapidly as I have it,
Yeah.
but I don't have it yet.
Well, that sounds like
That's
worth
what
the price of
do.
admission right
Oh.
there.
I hope so.
Okay, so I want to ask you, just bringing it back to, and I don't know, I mean, you're talking about frequency, and I got questions about frequency, but I want to ask you about, I mean, we're talking about these end-of-the-world scenarios, and again, I'm amazed that we're still here in 2013, despite the wars and the rumors of wars, but something that's bothering me and bothering a lot of people that's happening in the world, it's another potentially apocalyptic scenario, is the Fukushima nuclear accident that is an ongoing threat, it seems to me, to life on the planet with the radiation that it continues to spew out and the possibility of that increasing again with another accident. Can you talk about that a little bit? And is
Yes.
that, and how, or what we can do about that? Or
I'm happy to talk about that.
okay.
you know, if you take a look at the oil spill, the very big one that just happened off the Florida coast, the prophecies of what it would do to the environment and to life, it was predicted that for 40 years, areas would not have any wildlife. It would be uninhabitable in certain areas, no fish.
Yeah.
Okay, and I remember that we called a global coming together. I have students around the world in the Ukraine. We have offices there and in Moscow and, you know, everywhere all the way to Taiwan, Singapore. We called a global coming together to do intense work on clearing our emotions. And we gave specifics as to this is what this represents. Let's spend this week. Let's every day clear it. By the end of the week, and I was in a retreat in Ohio at the time, I walked out of the class and there was a newsstand and I happened to see the headlines on the newspaper, and it was the World News. And it said, where did all the oil go? Because suddenly a bacteria appeared that digested oil. Back in 2005, I actually, I think it is written in my book, Secrets of the Hidden Realms, I wrote about a bacteria that will ingest oil being produced, and it started then to be put into our ecosystem. But it changed the reality of what was predicted.
Because when that oil spill happened, which was just a year or two ago,
Yes.
they were it was an apocalyptic scenario.
Yes, it was.
And you know, Florida was going to be uninhabitable.
Yes.
But it seems like more or less
Yes.
things are back to normal.
So let's look at Chernobyl.
Okay.
Nostradamus said that wormwood would pollute the waters of the earth. Chernobyl is the Russian word for wormwood. It has, you know, I have lots of Russian students that I see on a regular basis. It has had minor effects on their lives.
Yeah.
But somehow they are managing to overcome radiation.
Okay. Can I just tell you my personal
Please
story?
do,
Because I told you a
yes.
little bit of a personal story before the show.
Yes.
But regarding Chernobyl, when Chernobyl happened, which was 1986, I remember it very well. It was a very disturbing event because I
Yes.
understand the implications. But also, don't forget, that year, I think it was February of 1986, there was the space shuttle disaster, right? On a very, very cold February day. I remember how cold it was. But these events affected me to the point where I made a decision about my life that was a life-changing event for myself. And just the short end of the story is I moved, when those events happened and Chernobyl affected me profoundly, I made a decision to change my life. And I moved from my hometown to Toronto. And that opened up a whole new future for me. So I made a choice. I made a change that made my life, I had a discomfort, something that was irritating me. And through those events in the world, caused me to make a shift that lessened my internal discomfort. And so my personal being was more at ease. And it was related to what was happening in the outside world.
That is the rock in the river. The rock in the river that wasn't there yesterday, and suddenly the river changes course. These are course changes only. Now, where we can go astray is if we start focusing on trying to save the world, on trying to change things outside of ourselves, when all we can experience is just ourselves. So how do we deal with something like that? We realize that it is saying to us we are at a threshold. It's time for changes. And we see what exactly that means. I have for a long time, and actually this is the first time in all the many, many words that I've spoken over these years, and I think I have something like 24, 25 books now, I have no idea. But in all this time, I have never said this, but I have seen that man will become, in his evolution, and it will happen gradually, so he will not even notice it. He will become what's called a superhuman. And when he lives from that level, radiation is really not something that will affect him. And that it will happen on time. Because I could see that the planet was going to become, you know, I live on the Oregon coast. The Japanese current comes right down the coast.
Yeah.
And my daughter recently in her school project with the Geiger counter studied our seaweed, and it was all radioactive. All the samples she took up and down the coast. So I'm very aware of that. But I'm also aware that as we evolve, the body becomes more of a field. And these things just don't really affect us. I have found, again, practical advice, because you do it at all levels. What I have found, and we have developed actually a 5-month program. It took me 5 years to develop this program, to purify the body in a way that purifies the radiation, parasites, bacteria, viruses, and fungus, and completely purifies the body. We have a product that folks can find by just calling our head office, and they can speak to our administrator there. And she will be delighted to talk to them about it. But we found a product in Germany that was developed. It's a spagyric homeopathic. And it was developed by German scientists who tested it at Chernobyl. There's a 40-mile radius fence around Chernobyl. The Russian scientists went there with their Geiger counters and their radiation suits, accompanying the Germans, who used this and then went right up to Chernobyl and touched its walls. And when they came back out again, they had no radiation.
Wow.
My daughter has laptops. She constantly has it next to her in bed. Women lodge the radiation in their mammary glands, men in their prostate glands, mostly. So I regularly, every few months, I just have a bottle of these spagyric homeopathic drops that I give her. She takes one bottle, and I couple it with that which moves it out of the system, which is for the lymph, also developed by them. And I do this for her every few months to keep her free from radiation, because she's also exposing herself through the proximity of her electronics. So we have this, and it's very inexpensive. And my office will be happy to advise people and talk to them about it.
Boy, that sounds like something that the people working at Fukushima could use.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so can I just ask you about a couple more things before we, I don't know how much longer we're going to continue here, but I want to ask you about free energy, you know, because I think that, you know, when we look at pollution and that kind of stuff, and we hear all kinds of reports about free energy, the water-powered car that's been around for a couple of dozen years anyway. And if you recall those headlines in 1989 when Pons and Fleischmann announced that they had discovered cold fusion, and it was the hope of the world in 1989 that we would have this free energy technology, and then it kind of quietly disappeared from the news over a while. But when I saw that headline, this is again my personal experience of that, I thought, this is fantastic. This is going to change the world. This is the hope of creating a future where the environment is going to be protected, where we're not going to create greenhouse gases. But there was a part of me at that time that thought, I don't think, we're not ready for this. Part of me didn't believe it. Part of me that this is too good to be true. And I'm wondering if that is maybe how I related to the cosmos at that point.
Certainly. I have been aware that these devices have been in various scientists have produced them. India has most certainly produced one. In Utah, in Salt Lake City Valley there, it has also been produced. It has been produced in multiple places, but has always been suppressed. Why has that been the reality?
Yeah.
It comes back to the building blocks of life and the way that they flowed in the form of linear time. See, how the cosmos has functioned in how it has actually energized itself has been through duality. In other words, there was an external dependence to energize yourself. You always needed an opposite to bounce energy back and forth.
Okay.
The duality created polarity, which is the movement between the two opposite poles. But we have had light and frequency as the two components in the subatomic particles. This has changed with linear time. So now energizing the cosmos is no longer coming from bouncing off of opposites. Because as long as life has opposites, there is always debt and karma. You always owe. More of days, less of night. Now night takes it back, now there's less of day. Now it owes day, so now it has to come back again. Karma has been the bouncing of the rubber ball back and forth. So secondly, light and frequency is where it begins because they're opposite. However, what you have now is in fact a new building block that has appeared on the scene. And the building block is a sphere. It's spherical. It's got the components, but they all fit together inside a sphere. So light and frequency can still alternate in emphasis, but they are integrated and they function as one. They are layers of the same expression. So no longer, except where man clings to illusion, in the cosmos is energy coming at the cost of something else. This is being energized from within.
Okay.
Hence the centrifugal force. It is actually accessing its dynamic vitality directly from source because it's not at war. When you're at war, you open spaces that eliminate the ability to interpret properly the infinite's intent. When that space becomes formless form and timeless time, it becomes that which moves but doesn't move. It's just an emphasis, these rings. The rings don't actually move, you see?
Right.
So it's motionless movement when you're looking at rings in a pond.
It's just an apparent movement. The particles are just going up and down, but the rings are going
exactly.
out. Yeah.
Now we're entering a period in which some of these things can, yes, they can come to the foreground. Prior to this, it couldn't, because at the very subatomic level, it was also pillaging one another for the sake of survival.
Okay, so we can be hopeful for the future.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about? We're going to give all the information how people can maybe go to the lecture tonight or go on the retreat this weekend and follow up with you on the web and that sort of thing. But is there any final thoughts or ideas you want to leave people with?
Well, there is something quite massive that's happened cosmically. And it will be very much part of what we will be looking at this weekend.
Okay.
Because it is an activation of the additional components of DNA within beings on Earth, beings everywhere. It has activated broader ability within the DNA, so it has evolved life. At a cosmic level, what this did is that angelic armies, and let's call them armies because they are in groups like armies and they are under angel gods and so on, and a massive, massive angelic army with 1,440 orders were formed to span 3 different levels of existence. And the 4th level is not spanned, it is suppressed. You know, right now as we speak, we have one small faction holding hostage the American economy, the American people, and the American government. Because in the cosmos, the underworld of the cosmos has not been brought into its true functioning. Its angelic beings haven't been properly established. So it's shut down.
So this is
it's
like
in a lockdown.
This is like an as above, so below
Yes.
Scenario.
Yes.
So this is what's happening with the U.S. government and economy right now. There's something
Exactly.
below in that underworld.
It's in a lockdown.
Okay, so what's going to happen?
So what we can do is we can actually metamorphose the subconscious of ourself into a magical reality, one where the magic of life is restored. And on Earth it will mean that the fairies and the little elves and so on can leave the middle world of man and can actually go home from where they can do their work that benefits us with far more power. The angelic realms were divided into 3 realms. The realm of pristine man, which is not this web of sub-created reality that we see, some which has been deliberately created with some events on Earth, but it's sub-created. It's like a spider web over the Rembrandt. The Rembrandt is true, pristine humanity. And you know, if you ask me what is the bulk of the work that I have done since 2005, it is to establish the principles of pristine man. So we remember what it meant to be a human. And then above that there is the realm of the gods. You spoke earlier about how it is surprising that the world is held together. Last time I was on your show, and I can't remember when it was, but I remember that I spoke about the fact that there are God beings in the flesh who are some of the major light workers on Earth, but they've forgotten who they are. And they just feel so lost amongst humanity, it just makes no sense. Sometimes even in their own families. So that these are the God beings that are walking amongst man. The realm that you can say is the realm above pristine man is the realm of the gods. They have come in service, and through their own overcomings, they have kept the world afloat in spite of the atomic bomb. There is a reality above that, and the reality above that is called the magical kingdoms. It's, for instance, populated by dragons, and some of the high angel gods and so on are in that reality. There have been angels in each of these realities. The angel gods preside over their orders. There are 1,440 orders. And when you take a look at this, the army that was formed is the cooperation between realms that could not previously communicate with one another. And there is now a total integrated function of higher life. This is going to produce more cooperation on Earth. So there is a lot of hope.
Okay, so it sounds like some good times ahead. So, and for the U.S. economy and the U.S. government and you know, the U.S. Constitution and all that stuff, what can we look forward to there?
I spoke about this on our last interview, and on our last interview, I said that we regard the return of the economy to what was as normal, but it never was normal. It was an economy based on debt. Now let's look at how the energy has flown in the cosmos. It was based on debt. I rob from night, so now there's more day, so now night robs back, and now there's less day, and now it owes me. There is always debt. When you have karma, which means simply you move from one opposite to the other. So again, debt, we cannot return to that old model.
No.
The debt has got to go.
Yeah.
So we are looking at some times ahead that may be an upheaval financially. But what does the new way of energy say? It's the empowerment of the single drop in the pond. It is the empowerment of the individual. There is amazing solutions that will produce themselves to you when you trust that you will manifest your abundance, because you are abundantly living with your life, with yourself, with others. You are abundant in the rest you give yourself. You are abundant in the joy you give yourself in your labor. You are abundant in all things that you do. And this will translate into abundance no matter what it does. Do not sit and wait for external sources of abundance. Do not let laziness or lack of self-empowerment have you be a sitting duck, because changes must come. And everything in the cosmos says the time is now for the resourcefulness of the individual to bear fruit.
Okay, well that's fantastic. I mean, and I guess people, you know, they can come to the lecture tonight. It's tonight at the Lithuanian Hall, 1573 Bloor West, near the Dundas West Station. And also you're going to be having the retreat this weekend beginning tomorrow night, and people, I guess, can still sign up for that?
Yes.
Sorry? Okay, it starts tomorrow, Friday, during the day, and it's a 3-day affair. So people can, I'm going to give the website is spiritualjourneys.com, right? And if they want to email Helena at almine.net, and we're going to put that up in the credits so people can see all that. But this has been a fabulous conversation, Almine. Thanks for coming in here
My
today.
My pleasure.
And I guess this is just one of the reasons why you live up to what people have called you the greatest mystic of our time, right?
Thank you very much.
So thanks for doing this today, and thanks everybody for tuning in. We will be back. You know, we're always here at ThatChannel.com, and we'll see you all in the near future. Thanks for tuning in.